But like I said, the people who want it are going to buy it. But this is going to become more fuel for everybody else, just like the pixel counting and frame rate counting with the Tomb Raider game was just more fuel to say, hey, my system is better than your system.
Right.
You know, play the game. I love the video you did beforehand, man. Just game on. And at this point, especially in my life, I don't have time to talk about 30 frames and how I have more pixels than you. But just play this game on.
Right. And like I said, we finna close this out, but to me, I don't have no problem with, I like when journalists do their job and point out discrepancies and false claims of companies. Like if Nintendo said something and they lied, like, okay, Iwata said we weren't gonna have no more droughts. Okay, we had more droughts. If a journalist called it out, I can't get mad at him.
At this point,
he put that
especially
out
in my life,
I
don't have time to talk about 30 frames and how I have more pixels than you. But just play this game on.
Again, it doesn't look like what it was. They should be called out on that.
Call it out.
To me, what happens is I don't have no problem with I like stuff and trying to use it to make their system be the best system. And that's when it starts getting retarded. Let these people do their job. You keep gaming if you know what I'm saying. If you like the game, buy it. If you don't. You know what I'm saying, and move on. So, but anyway, with that being said, let's jump into the main topic, and then we'll cut out of here. I don't even know how long we've been going, but you know how we do when we get on here, we just start going with it. But K-Bum came to me about a topic, and it was surrounding, I think, Titanfall, right? You use Titanfall as an example. So this is what I'm going to do. K-Bum, set up the question the way you came at me, and then I add on to where my thoughts went. And the question I want to ask the viewers, I want them to ponder on this, and we're going to reminisce, we're going to go back and show y'all some historical aspects to it. And then we're going to look at where we at in this 8th generation and how things are totally different. Because when we was talking about it, we started just looking and analyzing like, dang, man, things are totally different in the gaming industry and how things used to be to how things are now. So go ahead and set up the question you asked me.
All right. So the biggest thing that I hear a lot when it comes to the PS4, like I said, I'm not here to defend the PS4, but I am interested in what's being said about the PS4 and even not even just the PS4, just the next gen consoles in general that's being said is, because after Titanfall, the thing that you've been hearing a lot is where's the next big game? And same thing with PS4 after Infamous, where's your next big game? And I know for me as a gamer, when I make a purchase, especially when you're paying $400, $500, I'm not going to buy something strictly because of something of a particular game that came out, day one of the launch. And so I know I went back and forth with Levelhead a little bit, just talking about, how my buying purchases isn't dictated by just launch titles, because, when you look at last PS3 and Xbox 360 launch titles, it was complete garbage. But looking at now, I don't make it, my purchase isn't based off of that. But the question that came out of that is, how long should you have to wait for that gotta have game? That game that says, I have to get this system. I have to get this PS4, this Wii U, this Xbox One. Like, I got to get it right now because I have to play this game. The question was, how long is too long to go without that gotta have game? And so that's kind of what we've been talking about, and even just briefly going over what the launch games looked like in this generation, last generation, and what kind of launch games we were playing back in the day when we popped in Mario Brothers and we were playing Duck Hunt, and just making a subjective observation of how long was too long, and for these launch games to get a game that makes me want to buy this system.
Right, and then we also went here too. We also, after asking that question, I can't. It hit me. When did this become the norm? Because this wasn't the norm. Like to me, I use this analogy. I'm just going, you know, I'm real, people. So I was telling K-Bum, I said, you know, I bought the Wii U strictly, and I know K-Bum bought the PlayStation 4 strictly because he's a Sony fan and I'm a Nintendo fan. So Nintendo didn't have to do much. I ain't just saying I went out and bought the system just to buy it, but they didn't have to do much to persuade me. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have to. They ain't had to do much but show me enough that it's a new system. I'm already in because it's a new Nintendo system. Then they show you the gamepad. They show you all what's capable with the gamepad. Then they start showing you what they believe they want to do, and then a few games. And then they showed me verse. I was sold, right? Now I know this is not going to sell everybody. Then the same with the PlayStation 4. They come out, you know, they talk about this, they talk about that. They show you the touchpad. They show you how they widen the, you know, the joystick and the analog sticks, and how they changed up the triggers and all that. And then they start showing you what the system specs are and what they believe they can do, and they show you this. And if you a Sony fan, that should sell you pretty much on buying the system. But I said this to K-Bum. I said, you know what? If what launched on the Wii U
I got a visual.
was the same thing launching on the PlayStation 4. Let's say Mario U and Zombie U was launching on the PlayStation 4.
Lost him.
I told K-Bum, I'm just gonna be honest, I wouldn't have bought the PlayStation 4.
Start down, approaching.
I wouldn't if, so let's say Mario
Yeah, we got a man down. Don't bother.
3D World was coming to the PlayStation 4. Now, this is coming from being a Nintendo fan, but I'm just using those two games.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have bought the PlayStation 4 until either Wonderful 101 came out or 3D World, Mario 3D World came out. That's what would have been when I would have purchased the PlayStation 4 based off of the Nintendo games that was launched on the Nintendo Wii U. But because I'm a Nintendo fan, I knew these games were coming. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I knew. I already expect Metroid. I already expect Zelda. I already expect Mario. I already expect those big franchises. So I don't have to wait till they come out to purchase the system. But with Sony, I'm waiting to Order come out. I'm waiting to Drake Uncharted come out. I'm waiting to the next God of War or whatever that next Infamous ain't the game. So how long should you have to wait for a system selling game? And I don't think we should be waiting this long because, and I transition, before I go there, I don't think we should be waiting this long, but I'll let K-Bum jump in and say what he thinks. Do you think we waiting absolutely too long for a AAA game?
My honest opinion is, and I briefly said this a little bit, they're not, if you take Nintendo out of the equation, you cannot name too many AAA games that came out in the summertime. The summertime is usually void except for sports games, baseball, you get your football, but your heavy hitters usually always waits for the holiday season so they can make the most of their money. That's where you're going to see all the Battlefields, you're going to see all the Call of Duties, all the Assassin's Creeds, you're going to see Mass Effect usually comes out in February, but the majority of the guys, the big heavy hitters, and even when you look at this year's, a lot of the heavy hitters actually wait until that holiday season so they can make that big time buck. And when you're talking about a new console, you still want those good games to come out in a reasonable time. I mean, you want those games out now. You want the games out as soon as you bought the system. You want to play it now. But I'm still under the belief, and they know these consoles come out in the holiday season, and it's usually not until the next holiday season. My thing is, if I'm fine with that gotta have game not coming out until the winter, not until not the winter, but I guess it's considered the October time frame, the September time frame.
Well, fourth quarter, pretty much third
quarter. September is when you should start seeing games.
So
September time frame, yeah. At the end of that, you should start seeing some big time games in September. You should get it before November. You should get that AAA game, that game that makes you say, "Man, I'm happy I have this system." You should have that by September, at the latest October. That's my feel, because I understand that, you know, your big boys don't come out in the summertime. It just don't do it. It's just not, it's not the norm to have some big heavy hitters to come out in the summertime.
Well, let me jump in there. To me, I don't think we should be waiting that long for the first. Let me preface the first when I say that. Keyword first, heavy hitter. Now, this wasn't the norm, K-Bum, like we was talking the other day. This wasn't the norm when the system came out. Most of the time, the system seller came out with the system, at least one. Like if you look now, if I use Nintendo, I won't use the NES because nobody knew that Mario was going to be as good as it was. So we won't use Mario for that system. But then when you look at the Super NES, Mario's rep and iconicness was broad. You know, you had Mario, Mario 2, then Mario 3. Mario was the deal. And then Mario World released with the Super NES. That was one of the best games of the Super NES, was released day one with the NES, you know what I'm saying? Then you look at the PlayStation 4, Crash Bandicoot, and all those games that came out on the PlayStation was day one. You know, it wasn't, you didn't wait. I don't know, I'm not for sure. I think Crash Bandicoot was day one with the PlayStation. I don't wanna I'm not for sure. You a PlayStation fan, you have to correct me on that. Or somebody correct me, but I'm thinking Crash Bandicoot came out. But then when you look at like N64, Mario 64, Wave Race, all these games was early on. What was the other one? Killer Instinct, Gold. That was all within the first few months of the N64. You didn't wait long for those games. Then you look at the PlayStation 2, you had Tekken. You had a couple other games you had on that system that was good system sellers. Tekken Tag Team and all that. It wasn't until, and then you got Halo with
you picked
Xbox,
the wrong guys to
right?
rob, Sensei.
So it wasn't until 7th generation
it's time for the old man to
that
retire,
you didn't
boys.
have a day one game that was system selling. Like you look at the GameCube, you had Luigi's Mansion. That's a system I went and you had Wave Race come out pretty early in that system in that system's life too. The second Wave Race. So those are system sellers. So when the 7th generation hit with the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, and you know, of course the Wii had a killer game with Wii Sports, but nobody knew it was going to be a killer. But it was a killer game. It was a system seller. But with the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, that's when you start seeing that these systems were not releasing with must-have games. Like the must-have game for the 360 didn't come into the following E3 with Gears of War. It was at the end of the following year. It was 2 years into that system before you got a game that made you have to buy the 360. Everything else they had released, you know, Dark, they had bought Rare, they had released Perfect Dark, and they released Cameo or whatever that game was, and a few King Kong, you know, showing off the graphics. But as far as then they did have Call of Duty. So that was a must-have, but for the most part, it really wasn't nothing there until the following year, with the end of the following year with Gears of War. And then with the PlayStation 3, I think the first must-have game was if I'm not off, was Metal Gear Solid 4. Am I wrong?
These buildings are protected by
for the
high-tech
PS3?
tripwires.
Yeah.
But you can wreck them all with a simple bamboo
the
dot.
first game that, you know, if I would say, the game that, I mean, I thought was really good and you should have played it on the PS4. Many people may not agree with me, but I thought Resistance was really good.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying I feel you, but I'm saying like
Motorstorm was I think the first real system seller because it was supposed to come at launch, but it didn't.
Okay.
To me, the Motorstorm was one of the system sellers for the PS3. I mean, that's one thing they hyped, and it was a very fun game. If you had never played it, the online of it was flawless. There was absolutely no lag, and that was the first time you ever got that. But I think Motorstorm to me was a system seller.
Well, my definition of a system seller is a tried and proven game. Where, you know, like to me, sometimes I can't say a new IP is a system seller. That's why I said no one, even though Wii Sports was a great game,
are protected by high-tech
no one knew it would be the system seller that it was because no one had ever played it or had ever seen it. You know, but like games like Mario or a game like Halo, being like if they released Halo at the beginning of the Xbox 360 Lite, Halo is a proven game.
But Halo was, you know, Halo was released with the Xbox, and it wasn't proven.
Bring down
right, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And so
there are some games, like you said, that do that. Like the first Mario Brother was one of them. You mentioned Wii Sport was a system seller, and the first Xbox was a system seller. I mean, people bought the Xbox strictly because of it. And same thing with Nintendo. Nintendo system.
Right. So my definition of a system seller, well, I'm not saying that, I mean, cars of a game is good and they're getting high praise. I think it should help sell systems. But I'm saying, like, on day one, most of the time the games that sell a system are proven.